On Christmas morning, my sister got a $60,000 BMW with a red bow. Me, a $2 piggy bank. But the most horrifying part wasn't the unfairness. It was discovering the car was actually purchased using my name. And here's how I turned that $2 gift into a $60,000 weapon to get my justice back. I'm Jessica, and for 28 years, I believed I was doing the right thing by putting family first. My sister Sarah, 4 years younger, had always been the golden child, the princess who could do no wrong. While I worked 2 jobs through college and sent money home every month, Sarah got her tuition paid, her car insurance covered, and her phone bill handled. All by me, of course. The pattern started when I was 13 and she was 9. Mom would say, "Jessica, you're so responsible. Can you help with Sarah's school supplies?" Dad would add, "You understand money better than she does." And like an idiot, I believed them. I thought being the responsible older sister meant sacrificing everything for family harmony. By the time I turned 18, I was working at Target after school and sending half my paycheck home. Just until Sarah graduates, they said. When I was 22 and landed my first real job in marketing, suddenly the family needed help with the mortgage. Just temporarily, they promised. At 25, when I finally had savings, Sarah needed a car for her new job. "You know we'd do the same for you," they assured me. 15 years of just temporarily. 15 years of we'd do the same. 15 years of being treated like a human ATM while watching my little sister live consequence-free. The warning signs were everywhere, but I was too programmed to see them. When Sarah wrecked her car, the one I'd helped buy, Mom called me before calling insurance. When Sarah lost her job, Dad asked if I could help out until she finds something new. When Sarah wanted to move to a nicer apartment, they suggested I co-sign since my credit was so much better. Looking back, I can see how they manipulated every situation. They'd call during my lunch breaks when I was stressed. They'd bring up Sarah's needs during family dinners when saying no would ruin the mood. They'd use phrases like "family sticks together" and "you're the only one who can help" to make me feel special and guilty at the same time. The gaslighting was subtle but constant. When I'd express frustration about always being the one asked for help, Mom would say, "You're so dramatic, Jessica. We're grateful for everything you do." When I'd point out that Sarah never contributed, Dad would respond, "Everyone contributes differently. You're good with money, she's good with other things." When I'd suggest Sarah get a second job like I had, they'd tell me I was being harsh and unrealistic. But I kept falling for it because I desperately wanted their approval. I wanted to be seen as the good daughter, the reliable one, the family hero. What I didn't realize was that heroes in toxic families aren't celebrated. They're exploited. The month before Christmas, I'd noticed some concerning changes in my family's behavior. They'd become secretive during phone calls, hanging up quickly when I entered rooms. Sarah was unusually excited about Christmas, posting cryptic messages on social media about best Christmas ever and dreams coming true. My parents seemed nervous around me, almost guilty, but I convinced myself I was being paranoid. I'd been working overtime for months to save for everyone's Christmas gifts. I bought Dad the expensive tools he'd been wanting, $400. I got Mom the jewelry set she'd admired at the mall, $300. For Sarah, I'd saved up $600 for the designer purse she'd been obsessing over since summer. I felt good about being able to give them nice things for once, things they actually wanted instead of just practical gifts. The night before Christmas Eve, I was wrapping presents in my small apartment when my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "OMG, Jess, tomorrow is going to be amazing. I can't wait for you to see my surprise." Something about her excitement made my stomach twist. In our family, surprises usually meant I'd be paying for something I hadn't agreed to yet. Christmas morning arrived with that perfect movie scene snow falling outside my parents' house in the suburbs. I parked my 5-year-old Honda Civic behind the lineup of cars already there. Extended family had come for the big celebration. My arms were full of carefully wrapped gifts as I struggled up the icy walkway, and I remember thinking how nice it would be if someone offered to help. But I was used to carrying everything myself by then. Inside, the house buzzed with that excited energy that only comes with big family gatherings. Cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone was there, which was unusual. Normally, Christmas was just immediate family. The living room looked like a magazine spread with perfectly arranged presents under an enormous tree. And I felt that familiar pang of inadequacy looking at our modest pile compared to everyone else's elaborate gift displays. Sarah was practically vibrating with excitement, her eyes bright and mysterious. She kept checking her phone and looking toward the garage door with this secretive smile that made me increasingly anxious. My parents were acting strange too, overly cheerful, but with an undercurrent of nervousness I couldn't quite identify. "Jessica," Mom called out as she spotted me. "There you are. We were waiting for you to start. We have something very special planned this year." The way she emphasized "very special" while avoiding eye contact set off alarm bells in my head, but I pushed down the feeling. This was Christmas, family time. I should be happy. We exchanged the usual gifts first. Dad loved his tools. Mom cried over her jewelry, and Sarah squealed appropriately over her designer purse. I received the standard offerings: a gift card from Dad, a sweater from Mom that wasn't quite my style, and from Sarah, well, that's when things got weird. "This one's special, Jess," Sarah said, handing me a small box with an enormous grin. "I picked it out just for you." The box was clearly from a dollar store, wrapped in leftover birthday paper from what looked like a child's party. But her excitement seemed genuine, so I smiled and unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a plastic piggy bank, pink, the kind you'd give to a 5-year-old. A small sticker on the bottom read $1.99. But what made it truly insulting was the note taped inside. "For all your savings, love, Sarah." I stared at that piggy bank for what felt like an eternity. Around me, the family had gone quiet. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. $2. After 15 years of supporting this family, after working overtime to buy them hundreds of dollars in gifts, my sister had given me a $2 piggy bank. "Do you like it?" Sarah asked, her voice suddenly uncertain. I thought, you're always talking about saving money. I forced a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. "It's thoughtful, thank you." But inside, something was breaking. Not just my heart, my entire world view was starting to crack. "Well," Dad announced, standing up with obvious relief at moving past the awkward moment, "we're not done yet, Sarah. We have one more surprise for you. Everyone, let's head to the garage." That's when my world exploded. The garage door rolled up like a theater curtain, revealing a gleaming red BMW with an enormous red bow on top. Not just any BMW, a brand new 3 Series that I knew cost at least $60,000. Sarah's scream of joy was so piercing that dogs probably heard it 3 neighborhoods over. "Oh my God! Oh my God! Is this really mine?" she shrieked, jumping up and down like she'd won the lottery, which, in a way, she had. The family lottery that I'd been funding for years without knowing I was even playing. I stood there holding my $2 piggy bank, while my 24-year-old sister, who'd never held a job for more than 6 months, received a car worth more than most people's annual salaries. The contrast wasn't lost on anyone present. Extended family members exchanged uncomfortable glances. A few cousins were taking pictures, but stopped when they saw my face. "Isn't it beautiful?" Mom gushed, tears streaming down her cheeks as she filmed Sarah's reaction. We wanted to do something really special for our baby girl. Our baby girl. Not our daughters, not the girls, our baby girl, singular. As if I didn't exist, as if I hadn't been the one making this moment possible with years of financial support. Dad was beaming with pride, his chest puffed out like he'd personally built the car with his bare hands. "She deserves it," he declared to the gathered family. "Sarah's been through a lot this year, and we wanted to show her how much we love her." Through a lot? Through a lot of what? She'd quit her job at the boutique because the manager was mean. She'd broken up with her boyfriend because he wouldn't buy her expensive enough jewelry. She'd moved back home because adulting is hard. What exactly had she been through that warranted a $60,000 reward? Meanwhile, I'd worked through my grandfather's funeral because I couldn't afford to take time off. I'd stayed in my tiny apartment instead of buying a house because I was always helping family. I'd canceled vacations, skipped social events, and turned down dates because I was either working extra hours to send money home or too exhausted to have a life. But Sarah had been through a lot. I watched my sister climb into the driver's seat, running her hands over the leather interior like she was caressing a lover. The car still had that new car smell, that pristine perfection that comes with never having to worry about making payments or maintenance costs. She turned the key and the engine purred to life, a sound that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Take it for a spin around the block," Uncle Mike called out, clearly caught up in the excitement despite the obvious awkwardness of the situation. As Sarah backed the BMW out of the garage, I caught sight of some paperwork that had fallen from Dad's jacket pocket onto the garage floor. Loan documents. My stomach dropped as I recognized the letterhead. It was from my bank. The same bank where I'd been building credit for 10 years, where I had my mortgage pre-approval, where I'd established myself as a reliable customer. I bent down and picked up the papers, my hands starting to shake as I read the details. Auto loan application, $62,000, approved. Monthly payment, $847. And there, in black and white, was my name, my social security number, my employment information, my signature, or a very good forgery of it. They hadn't just ignored me. They hadn't just given my sister a car while giving me pocket change. They had stolen my identity to buy that car. They had used my credit, my income, my financial reputation to fund their favoritism. The monthly payments were automatically set up to come from my checking account, the same account I'd been depositing money into for years to help the family. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I couldn't even process it at first. My brain kept rejecting the information like it was too terrible to be real. But there it was, in official documents that couldn't be argued with or explained away. 15 years of being the responsible daughter. 15 years of sacrificing my own dreams to support theirs. 15 years of believing that family meant something sacred and unbreakable. All of it had been leading to this moment. Me standing in a garage holding a $2 piggy bank in one hand and evidence of identity theft in the other. Watching my sister drive away in a car that I would be paying for without my consent. That's when I realized that the game had been rigged from the beginning. I wasn't the family hero, I was the family ATM. And they'd just made their biggest withdrawal yet. But what they didn't know was that this withdrawal was about to bounce. Hard. I folded the loan documents carefully and slipped them into my purse next to the pink piggy bank. My hands had stopped shaking. My vision had cleared. For the first time in 15 years, I could see my family exactly as they were. Not as I desperately wanted them to be. The little girl inside me, who had spent decades trying to earn love through money, was finally growing up. And she was pissed. As I walked back toward the house, where my family was still celebrating Sarah's surprise, I made a decision that would change everything. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures of everything I could see. The garage, the remaining paperwork, the celebration, the evidence of their planning and deception. Because if they wanted to play games with my identity and my money, I was about to show them what happens when the bank fights back. The war was just beginning, and this time I was going to win. The drive home from my parents' house felt like moving through a different reality. Everything looked the same. Same streets, same traffic lights, same December snow. But I wasn't the same person who'd driven there that morning. The Jessica who'd walked into that Christmas celebration, carrying expensive gifts and hope for family connection, was gone. In her place sat someone harder, clearer, and infinitely more dangerous to people who underestimated her. I spent the next 3 days in what I can only describe as detective mode. The loan documents I'd found were just the tip of the iceberg, and I needed to know exactly how deep this betrayal went. I pulled my credit reports from all 3 agencies and nearly threw up when I saw the damage. The BMW loan was there, of course, but so were 3 credit cards I'd never opened, a personal loan I'd never applied for, and a line of credit that had been maxed out months ago. Total unauthorized debt in my name. $127,000. They hadn't just bought Sarah a car, they'd been systematically stealing my identity for years, using my excellent credit to fund their lifestyle while I worked overtime and lived in a studio apartment to help the family. Every time I'd sent money home, every time I'd sacrificed something I wanted to help them out, they'd been laughing behind my back while racking up debt in my name. The personal loan was particularly infuriating. $25,000, approved 8 months ago, with payments automatically deducted from my checking account. I'd assumed it was some kind of banking error and had been disputing the charges for months. The bank kept telling me the payments were legitimate, but I couldn't figure out why. Now I knew my own father had forged my signature on a loan application and set up automatic payments from my account. I documented everything: screenshots, photos, bank statements, credit reports. I created a digital paper trail that would make a forensic accountant weep with joy. I organized it all in folders on my laptop, identity theft evidence, financial manipulation timeline, legal documentation. I was building a case, and it was airtight, but gathering evidence was only the first step. I needed to understand the full scope of their operation, and that meant going deeper. I logged in to my parents' shared email account. They'd given me the password years ago so I could help them with online banking, and started reading. What I found there destroyed whatever microscopic shred of love I might have had left for them. Emails between my parents and the BMW dealership, discussing financing options and specifically mentioning that they'd handle the paperwork for the loan application. Text message screenshots my mother had forwarded to my father, showing Sarah's excitement about getting a surprise car for Christmas. Most damning of all, an email thread between my parents discussing how to manage Jessica's reaction to the Christmas gifts. She might be upset about the piggy bank, my mother had written, but she'll get over it. She always does, and she'll never find out about the loan. My father's response: even if she does figure it out eventually, what's she going to do? She won't destroy the family over money. That's not who she is. That's not who she is. They'd used my own character against me, my loyalty, my desire to keep the peace, my fear of being seen as the difficult one. They'd weaponized every good quality I had to keep me compliant while they robbed me blind. But they'd made one crucial miscalculation. They thought they knew who I was. They thought the Jessica they'd trained to be their personal ATM would always prioritize family harmony over personal justice. They thought wrong. I spent the next week building my professional support team. First, I met with a criminal defense attorney who specialized in identity theft cases. Jennifer Chen took one look at my evidence folder and whistled low. "This is one of the most comprehensive family identity theft cases I've seen," she said, scrolling through my documentation. "You have enough evidence to put them both in prison for 5 to 7 years each?" Prison. The word hung in the air between us like a sword. I hadn't really considered that possibility. I'd been focused on stopping them and getting my money back. But yes, what they'd done was felony identity theft, felony fraud, and felony forgery. They weren't just bad parents who'd hurt my feelings. They were criminals who'd committed serious federal crimes against me. "What are my options?" I asked. "You can file criminal charges, which would mean police involvement and likely prosecution," Jennifer explained. "Or you can handle this civilly, demand restitution, get the debts removed from your credit, and establish legal boundaries without putting them in prison. The choice is yours, but I'll tell you this: if you don't stop them now, they'll keep doing it. People like this don't change unless forced to." I also contacted my bank's fraud department, which immediately froze all the unauthorized accounts and started the process of removing the fraudulent debts from my credit report. The fraud investigator, a woman named Patricia Williams, was impressed by my documentation. "Most people come in here with no evidence and expect us to just believe their story," she said. "You've basically done our job for us. This is going to be a straightforward case." The credit card companies were equally helpful once I provided evidence of the fraud. Within a week, over $100,000 in unauthorized debt had been removed from my credit report. The BMW loan was trickier because they'd been making payments on it, but the bank agreed to investigate since I had clear evidence of forgery on the loan application. But I wasn't done. I needed to know what else they'd hidden from me, what other lies they'd built their lives on. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Carol Martinez, who specialized in financial crimes. Within 3 days, she'd uncovered information that made my identity theft look like petty theft. My parents were broke. Not just tight on money broke, completely, utterly, devastatingly broke. They'd been living on credit for years, juggling debt payments and using new credit to pay old bills. Their house was in foreclosure. Dad's business was failing and under investigation by the IRS for unpaid taxes. Mom had been secretly gambling online, losing thousands of dollars they didn't have. The BMW wasn't a generous gift to their beloved daughter. It was a desperate attempt to give Sarah something valuable before they lost everything. And they'd used my credit to do it because theirs was destroyed. They're probably looking at bankruptcy within 6 months, Carol told me. The house will be gone by spring. Your sister's car is likely the only asset they have left. And technically, it belongs to you since the loan is in your name. All those years of sending money home, thinking I was helping them through temporary rough patches. I'd been funding their financial freefall while they lied to my face about their situation. They'd let me sacrifice my own financial goals to delay their inevitable collapse, never telling me that my help was futile because they were drowning in debt they'd hidden from everyone. The final piece of my strategy was psychological preparation. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma and narcissistic abuse. Dr. Sarah Kim helped me understand the dynamics I'd been trapped in and prepare for what was coming. They're going to try every manipulation tactic they've ever used on you, she warned me. Guilt, anger, playing the victim, making you responsible for the family's emotional well-being. All of it will come out when they realize they can't control you anymore. You need to be prepared for that onslaught and have your boundaries firmly in place. We practiced conversations, role-play scenarios where my parents would try different approaches to regain control. We worked on my responses, my emotional regulation, my ability to stay focused on facts instead of getting pulled into their emotional drama. By New Year's Eve, I felt ready, which was perfect because New Year's Eve was when I'd planned to destroy them. The family tradition was a big New Year's Eve party at my parents' house. Extended family, family friends, neighbors. It was the social event of their year, the night when they got to show off and play the role of successful, happy family. This year, they were especially excited because they had Sarah's new BMW to showcase, proof of their generosity and prosperity. I almost didn't go. Part of me wanted to handle this privately, to confront them without an audience. But then I remembered that email. She'll never find out about the loan. They'd planned to humiliate me publicly with that piggy bank, knowing the entire extended family would witness the disparity between their gifts to me and Sarah. They'd been comfortable embarrassing me in front of everyone. Turnabout was fair play. I arrived at the party fashionably late, carrying a bottle of champagne and wearing the confident smile of someone who knew exactly what was about to happen. The house was packed, filled with the sound of laughter and conversation and the clinking of glasses. Sarah was holding court in the living room, showing off photos of her BMW to anyone who would listen. "Jessica," my mother called out when she spotted me, hurrying over with a nervous smile. "I'm so glad you came. How are you feeling about everything?" Everything, such a careful, loaded word. She was fishing to see if I'd discovered anything, if I suspected what they'd done. The guilt was written all over her face, but she was hoping I was still the naive daughter who could be managed and manipulated. "I'm feeling great, Mom," I said, giving her a hug that probably felt more like a threat. "Really, really great. In fact, I have some exciting news to share with everyone." Her smile faltered slightly. "Oh, what kind of news?" "You'll see. I thought I'd wait until everyone's gathered together. You know how I love a good family moment." I mingled for an hour, chatting with relatives, accepting congratulations on my generosity in helping Sarah get her car. Apparently, my parents had been telling people that I'd co-signed the loan as a sister gift. The lies were so casual, so practiced, that I wondered how long they'd been rewriting reality to make themselves look good. At 11:30, I made my move. I tapped my champagne glass with a knife, calling for everyone's attention. The room gradually quieted, all eyes turning toward me. My parents looked nervous but curious. Sarah beamed at me, probably expecting some kind of toast about family love and support. "I wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the room. "Family is so important, and I've learned some really valuable lessons about family this year, especially this Christmas." Murmurs of agreement, warm smiles. These people had no idea what was coming. As you all know, Sarah got a beautiful BMW for Christmas. A $60,000 BMW, actually. It's gorgeous, and I'm sure you've all heard about how generous Mom and Dad were in giving it to her. More nods, a few comments about what wonderful parents they were. Sarah was practically glowing with pride. "What you might not know," I continued, pulling out my phone, "is that the BMW was purchased with a loan. An auto loan for $62,000. Would you like to guess whose name is on that loan?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. My parents had gone completely still, their faces draining of color. Sarah looked confused, her smile faltering as she sensed the shift in energy. I held up my phone, showing the loan documents I'd photographed. "The loan is in my name. The monthly payments of $847 come directly from my bank account. My parents forged my signature on the loan application without my knowledge or consent." The silence was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in that crowded room. "In fact," I continued, warming to my theme, "this isn't the first time they've used my identity to obtain credit. Over the past few years, they've opened multiple credit cards, personal loans, and lines of credit in my name, accumulating over $127,000 in debt that I knew nothing about." Uncle Mike was the first to find his voice. "Jessica, are you saying—" "I'm saying my parents are guilty of identity theft, fraud, and forgery," I said clearly, letting each word ring through the room. "I'm saying that while I've been working overtime and living in a studio apartment to send money home and help the family, they've been stealing my identity to fund their lifestyle. I'm saying that Sarah's Christmas gift was paid for with money stolen from me." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Voices erupted from all corners of the room, shocked gasps, angry questions, confused demands for explanation. Several people pulled out their phones, some to Google whether what I was describing was actually criminal. Others to start recording what was clearly about to become a family meltdown of epic proportions. My father tried to regain control, raising his hands for quiet. "Now wait just a minute." "No, Dad, you wait," I cut him off. my voice sharp enough to cut glass. I waited for 15 years while you used me as your personal bank. I waited while you lied to me about your financial situation. I waited while you stole my identity and destroyed my credit. I'm done waiting. Sarah finally found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. Jess, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know they used your name. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw genuine shock and horror on her face. Maybe she truly hadn't known the details of how her gift was financed, but she'd known she didn't deserve a $60,000 car, and she'd accepted it anyway without asking questions. The loan documents, the credit cards, the personal loans, I've already reported all of it to the police and the FBI, I announced to the room. Identity theft is a federal crime. So is fraud. So is forgery. My attorney tells me they're looking at 5 to 7 years in prison each. Nane. That's when my mother broke down completely, collapsing into a chair with dramatic sobs that might have moved me 6 months ago. Now they just sounded like more manipulation, more attempts to make herself the victim in a situation where she was clearly the perpetrator. How could you do this to your family? She wailed. How could you destroy us over money? The question was so backward, so perfectly representative of their twisted worldview that I almost laughed. I didn't destroy this family over money, Mom. You destroyed this family for money. You stole from me for years, while letting me believe I was helping people I loved. You used my credit to buy gifts for Sarah while giving me a $2 piggy bank. You planned to let me pay for that car for the next 5 years without ever telling me it existed. My father made one last desperate attempt to regain control of the narrative. You're being dramatic, Jessica. This is family business. We can work this out privately. No, I said, and the finality in my voice made several people step back. This stopped being family business when you committed felonies against me. This stopped being something we could work out privately when you stole over $100,000 from me. This stopped being about family when you decided I was worth $2 while Sarah was worth $60,000. I pulled out the pink piggy bank I'd been carrying in my purse and set it on the coffee table where everyone could see it. This was my Christmas gift, $2. After 15 years of supporting this family, after working overtime to buy everyone else expensive presents, after sacrificing my own dreams to help with your financial problems, $2. The piggy bank sat there like evidence in a courtroom, impossible to argue with or explain away. The beautiful part is, I continued, since the car loan is in my name, and since I never consented to it, the BMW legally belongs to me. I've already contacted the dealership and the bank. Sarah, I'm sorry, but you'll need to return the keys. Sarah's face went white. But it's mine. It was a gift. It was a gift stolen from me and given to you, I corrected. You can keep driving it if you want, but you'll be making the $800 monthly payments. Can you afford that? We all knew the answer. Sarah had never held a job that paid more than minimum wage, and she'd been living at home rent-free for months. The party was effectively over. People began making excuses and leaving, some stopping to whisper words of support to me, others shooting dirty looks at my parents. Within an hour, the house was empty, except for immediate family. That's when the real confrontation began. My parents tried everything Dr. Kim had predicted they would. First came denial. This was all a misunderstanding. They'd meant to tell me about the loans. They'd planned to pay me back. When that didn't work, they moved to anger. How dare I embarrass them in front of the family? I was vindictive and cruel. I was destroying the family over money. When anger failed, they switched to guilt. They were sorry. They'd made mistakes, but family should forgive each other. They'd raised me, sacrificed for me, loved me unconditionally. How could I repay that love by threatening them with prison? Finally, they tried bargaining. They'd pay me back somehow. They'd sign over the house to me, forgetting, apparently, that it was already in foreclosure. They'd make Sarah get a job and pay for the car herself. Whatever I wanted, they'd do it, if I would just drop the criminal charges and keep this in the family. I listened to all of it with the detachment of someone watching a play she'd already seen. These weren't my parents speaking. They were desperate criminals trying to avoid consequences for their actions. "I'm not dropping the charges," I said when they'd exhausted their repertoire of manipulation tactics. "You committed serious crimes against me for years. You stole my identity, my money, and my trust. There have to be consequences." "But we're family," my mother pleaded, as if that magic word could undo years of betrayal. "No," I said, standing up and grabbing my purse. "Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't lie to each other for years. Family doesn't use love as a weapon to manipulate and control. You're not my family. You're criminals who happen to share my DNA." As I walked toward the door, my father made one last desperate attempt to regain control. "If you leave here tonight, don't bother coming back. You'll be dead to us." I turned around and smiled at him, a real smile, full of genuine amusement. "Dad, I've been dead to you for 15 years. You just kept my corpse around to make monthly payments." The next few months unfolded exactly as my attorney had predicted. The criminal investigation moved forward, with the FBI taking over the case, due to the interstate nature of some of the fraudulent accounts. My parents were arrested, charged, and eventually plea bargained down to probation and restitution, in exchange for admitting guilt and cooperating with the investigation. The house went into foreclosure, just as Carol had predicted. My parents had to move into a small apartment and find jobs, real jobs, not the fantasy businesses my father had been pretending were successful. They aged 10 years and 6 months. Sarah had to give up the BMW, which was repossessed when she couldn't make the payments. She moved in with a friend and got a job at a call center, earning just enough to cover her basic expenses. The last I heard, she was working 2 jobs and learning what it felt like to actually pay for things herself. The extended family was split. Some relatives supported me completely, horrified by what my parents had done. Others thought I was too harsh, that family problems should be handled privately. A few family friends stopped speaking to me entirely, unable to reconcile the sweet, responsible Jessica they thought they knew with the woman who'd had her own parents arrested. I didn't care. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't living for other people's approval. The financial recovery was surprisingly quick. With the fraudulent debts removed from my credit, my score shot up to nearly perfect. The $847 that had been automatically deducted for the BMW payments was returned to my account, along with interest. The money I'd been sending home every month stayed in my account for the first time in 15 years. Within 6 months, I had more savings than I'd ever had in my life. I moved from my studio apartment to a beautiful one-bedroom with a view of the city. I bought new furniture, took a vacation to Europe, and started contributing to my retirement fund again. It was amazing how much money I had when I wasn't funding other people's lies. But the real transformation was psychological. The girl who'd spent 28 years trying to earn love through sacrifice was gone. In her place was a woman who understood her own worth and refused to accept less than she deserved. I started dating again, something I'd barely had time or energy for when I was working constantly to support my family. I met David at a coffee shop downtown. He was a teacher who worked with at-risk kids, someone who understood the value of boundaries and the importance of protecting yourself from people who would use your kindness against you. When I told him my story on our third date, his reaction was immediate and unequivocal. "You're a badass. I can't believe you survived that for as long as you did. And I'm incredibly impressed that you had the courage to fight back." That's when I knew I'd found someone worth keeping around. Not someone who thought I should have handled things differently, or who worried about what I'd do if he crossed me, but someone who understood that strength sometimes looks like walking away from people who claim to love you. A year after that Christmas morning, I got a card in the mail. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting. Inside was a simple message: "We miss you. Love, Mom and Dad." I stared at that card for a long time, waiting to feel something. Sadness, maybe, or anger, or that old familiar guilt that used to drive me to forgive anything in the name of family harmony. But I felt nothing except a mild curiosity about their audacity. They missed me. They missed their personal ATM, their guaranteed source of money and emotional labor. They missed having someone they could manipulate and control. They didn't miss me, the real me, because they'd never actually seen her. I threw the card in the trash and went back to planning my next vacation. The pink piggy bank still sits on my windowsill, but it doesn't hold $2 anymore. I filled it with coins from all the countries I visited in the past year. Souvenirs from the life I built after I stopped funding other people's dreams and started pursuing my own. Sometimes people ask me if I have any regrets about how I handled things. They want to know if I feel bad about having my parents arrested, if I miss my family, if I think I went too far in my quest for justice. The answer is simple. I regret waiting so long to value myself as much as I valued them. That $2 piggy bank taught me the most expensive lesson of my life, but also the most valuable. It taught me that I'm worth more than breadcrumbs, more than manipulation disguised as love, more than being someone's backup plan or financial safety net. I'm worth being fought for, treasured, and chosen first. And now I know that if the people in my life don't see that value, it's not my job to convince them. It's my job to find people who do. The family I've built since then, friends who show up when I need them, a partner who celebrates my successes instead of exploiting them, colleagues who respect my boundaries, is worth more than all the blood relatives who saw me as a resource to be consumed. And every time I look at that piggy bank, I'm reminded that sometimes the smallest gifts teach us the biggest lessons about our own worth. I'm Jessica Martinez, and I'm worth more than $2. It took me 28 years to learn that lesson, but now that I have, I'll never forget it again.